Welcome, everybody, to Thrive, Not Just Survive. I'm your host, Nasira Jamal, and today is Friday. And I have a very amazing guest on every Friday, Dr. Cheryl Bryantbruce. And we have had many different conversations on health and wellness. And over the last couple of weeks, we have really kept our focus on the conversation of Black Lives Matter. And I want to continue this conversation because I believe it's a very important one that we need to keep the light on for it so that, we don't get distracted by all of the other things that are going on and all of a sudden it becomes secondary. So I want to bring Cheryl on. Actually, she's on right here. I didn't realize you were already on the screen. But welcome, Cheryl. I'm so glad that you are here and that you are allowing me to continue this conversation on my platform because I believe it to be a very, very important one and a very crucial time for us as we go through this next few months. So let's just sort of shed some light on what we talked about last week and from your perspective, how you see things going on.
Well, I think since last week, not a tremendous amount has changed, and that's kind of concerning to me. The reason I say that is because I do kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on. I don't have a choice because people keep reaching out to me and asking my opinion, and they're sending me clips of things that are concerning them just to keep me aware, which is a good thing because I actually, for the last couple of weeks, kind of got saturated with it all and had to draw back to take care of myself and to just recenter because it was just getting to be a bit too much. But of the many things that people are sending me, what I find concerning is that there still is more of the same. Haven't been a lot of police killings per se where blacks are being killed, although there have been a couple. What they're sending me is videos of blacks being harassed, being stopped for often much of nothing and sometimes for nothing at all, mistaken identity, you fit the description of, and then being mistreated. One of the videos that came through, and I actually didn't check the date on it, but I know that it was fairly recent, was from a police officer in Atlanta. He was telling the story of himself having been pulled over and having the shoe on the other foot. He was a black police officer, and he basically described the whole scenario as it was happening. And of course, being an officer, he said it was concerning up until the point that the officer asked him, did he have any weapons? Well, he's a police officer. Of course he had weapons. And he said that I am an officer. I do have weapons. He pointed to the top of his car. He said, I have a knife strapped to the top of my car. And he said, and I have my police pistol on my hip. And he opened his jacket to show the police pistol. But he said at that point, things immediately got horribly tense. And, the officer was demanding that he showed the ID. Well, the ID was in his pocket. And he said, no, I know how this goes. And there's no way that I'm reaching in my pocket. And he told the officer, I am an officer. You can call and check. Or if you should desire, you may reach into the pocket and pull the credentials and check them yourself. I am not reaching into my pocket. At that moment, he noticed that the officer's body cam, was not on. And he did give a very important piece of information. He said, if that officer's body cam is on, you see the little red light blinking. If you don't see that little red light blinking, you have the right to ask the officer to turn on the body cam.
Okay.
So he made a point that that's very, very important because you need that body cam to be on. One, it might deter them from doing something untowardly. And two, it records the interaction no matter what transpires.
And it's
So,
so, like, but that's so alarming, right? That, you know, even as an officer, or if it was just a civilian, that the thought process is that way, that I know I can't reach into my pocket. I have to, you know, like, to be in that position, it just means that you're thinking of how things can go wrong very quickly, right?
yes, yes. And as an officer, he actually knew all of the many ways that they could go wrong. And at the end of the encounter, I mean, finally he was recognized as an officer and he was allowed to go about his merry way. But then he pulled over to make this video and he expressed being terrified and not being sure that he was going to walk out of that situation with his life because he knew all of the ways it could go bad. And fortunately, because he did, he was able to soothe the situation and to de-escalate it. But we don't know that. And there are so many things that we could have done wrong that could have turned it into a terrible situation.
But the fact that you have to be like that, and more so because, you know, you're Black,
Yes,
that is what is so disturbing, right? That if that is one of those things that, you know, this for one life is different than if it was somebody else in a
yes.
different situation. And I think this is where I just can't understand, like, how this can go on. Like, we're in 2020 and
Mhm.
still dealing with this type of mentality of people under authority. Like, these are, you know, people that hold a badge or wear a uniform. It's
Yes.
very disturbing to think that in the year 2020, when we've made all of these other advancements, that for humans, we have not made the advancement of just equality. Like, it just baffles my mind.
And this is true. And people always want to say, well, it happens to everybody. Everybody gets pulled over. White people get pulled over too. And that is true. White people do get pulled over. Asians get pulled over. Everybody gets pulled over. The difference is, even in the event that someone is armed or is doing something threatening, a white person is very likely to walk out of it. And an example is, there was an 18-year-old young man. I can't remember what he was doing, but he was doing something nefarious, and the police got involved. And so it was enough so that 7 officers were called in for the event. The young man started, they tried to talk him down. He started wrestling with one of the officers, took the officer's weapon, shot the officer. The other 6 circled him and they talked him down and they wrestled with him until they got him on the ground. The entire encounter took 2 minutes. 2 minutes of this whole wrestling and arguing and talking him down. And he walked away from it. He was arrested, released with a slap on the wrist after shooting an officer. And he was doing something wrong. You have young Black men who are doing nothing more than minding their business. And on the average, they're dead in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah. And
Less than 30 seconds.
and that's why this conversation is so important, that we continue with this, because innocent lives are being lost. I'm not
Yeah.
saying, right, like, of course there's a place for the police force, right, in terms
Yes.
of
Oh, absolutely.
activity and whatever's going on. Of course, it's to serve and protect. That is a given, right, for our society to be, you know, a good society where we have control over crime and all of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But if it's based on social or profiling, if it's based on that level of, discernment that, okay, so and so will get this kind of treatment and so would get this kind of treatment, even though both are under perhaps a criminal investigation of some sort, then that's what we're trying to see about carrying this conversation on, so people understand that there is a big difference, right, between how a Black person is handled, even if they're minding their own business, these young lives that are just doing the thing that they're doing and whatever, right? So what do you think, like, I know right now it's we're in a high political sort of area or place right now that is really tough, right? Because on top of just the political side, this whole thing is going on that's bringing light to the inequalities. What do you think is a strategy for moving forward in terms of the elections and all of this that's coming up? What is it that people should be looking at and thinking about?
Well, without being too political, I mean, I have my opinions on who the culprits are, but we're not going to turn this into a political show. So, without being too political, I think it is important for people to really look at the politicians, especially the politicians at the top, who have the most visibility and who have the most influence, and ask yourself, is this person a part of the problem or are they part of the solution? And if they are part of the problem, what is the likelihood that they are going to make a real shift, not just a political shift for the vote? And we see people right now in the United States, at least, we are in election year. And so people are politicking for everything. And a lot of them are using Black Lives Matter as a political platform. And that's fine if you really intend to be a part of the solution. If you are one of those people who really doesn't give a care about Black Lives Matter, but you see it as a platform to try and move yourself forward, then do us a favor, step aside, because we want a better world. And it is time for our leaders to start making that. The people are speaking, the people are saying, we want a better world. We want more equality. We want more peace. We want more love. We want more humanity. The people are speaking. Now we need to elect the leaders that are going to lead the charge and hear the call. So, regardless of what your political affiliation, regardless of where you are in the world, what your government body is, if you have even anything that approximates a democracy where you have a chance to vote, where you have a chance to evaluate your candidates, you really need to look hard at the candidates. Step outside of your party, step outside of the rhetoric, look at that person, see who they are. What is their track record? Their mouth is saying this right now because they want your vote. But what is their track record? If their track record is 180 degrees from what they're spitting out of their mouth, my mother-in-law used to have a great saying. She used to say, a zebra never changes its stripes. No matter whether you paint it, underneath the stripes remain. So if you have somebody that has been either covertly or blatantly racist all of their life, or if you have somebody that has promoted warmongering, you have somebody that is not a peaceful personality, you cannot expect that person to lead the country in a peaceful direction. You cannot expect that person to lead the country toward equality. It's not going to happen. They may tell you anything. They may even do a few things on the top to get you to believe, oh yeah, this person's going to make a difference. But in the reality, in the long term, once they get what they want from you, if this is the person that is part of the problem, they're going to remain part of the problem.
So this is where it's so important, right? Where critical thinking comes into place, and we all have to look at that as opposed to being a follower and saying, well, so and so is following this party, or so and so says that person's right, or whatever that is, right? Or the party or the group. Or I think the idea here is now the elevation of our own thinking, for our own research, for us to make decisions based on true facts of what
Yes.
we believe to be true, and
Yes.
taking that before we make those decisions. I mean, a lot of times I think when voting time comes around, you go and you kind of robotically just do what you did last year or whatever, last
Exactly.
4 years ago, and you follow a certain party. You don't really know what they believe in, what is their foundation, who are they. Like, I think a lot of that, people just kind of do what they're used to doing and think, well, we can't really make a difference, right?
Right.
It's one vote. But the
Right.
thing is, that whole mentality has to change, is that if we want to be part of the change, part of the solution, then we have to start thinking about who we believe that is going to get into the leadership role to lead us down that path. And it's not
Right.
every vote counts, right? So it's not about saying, well, I'm just one person and nothing's going to make a difference. Coming together makes a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other part of it is really piggybacking on what you just said. We have to get out of voting parties. We just have to get out of doing that, because a party is no more than an ideology, but it is the people who make the difference. So again, we really have to look at who the person is at each position and say, is this someone that I want leading the country? Is this someone that is going to push the country in the direction that I would like to see it go? And we really have to think about them in terms of who they are as a person. One of the conversations that has been going on here in the United States, we have uh, a candidate who is entertaining running a black female as one of his running mates. And there are four candidates in the mix that people think that he may select from. And, they're talking about, who's better. And there is one candidate that, bubbles up to the top. She's very attractive. She's more what America looks for, so on and so forth. And black people are like, oh yeah. Yet, if you look at her track record has not been favorable for blacks. Her track record has not been just. Her track record has been that she is climbing the political ladder, whatever the cost. This is not the person that we need at this time. This is not the person that we need representing us. This is not the person that we can anticipate having the best interest of blacks, and in that sense, the best interest of the country. Because I think that's one thing that people have to understand. What's in the best interest of blacks right now is in the best interest of the country. Because what the country, what the world needs now is unity. What the world needs now is to really embrace our humanity, and all inclusive humanity. We are but one race, lots of colors. I walk every morning with my little dog. I'm out here in the country, and so I see all of these lovely pastoral scenes. And one of the scenes I saw this morning was a group of 8 horses grazing. And I stopped and stood and just observed them. for a moment. And my mind couldn't help but wander to the situation that we're in, because the observation that I made as I was naming all of these horses, because they all had, unique characteristics. One had a brown eye and a green eye, and so he had lots of different spots and patterns. So I named him Enigma. Another one I named Paint because it had all of these different patches. There was Midnight, who was a black horse, and Coco, who was a brown horse. And there was Treasure, who was both brown and white and had just a lovely set of markings that looked like a treasure chest. And so I'm looking at all of these different colors and different patterns, and they were all so beautiful. We even had Stumpy, who was the runt in the group. They were all beautiful. They were all different colors, and they were all contentedly munching together. And when I came up, I'm obviously not a horse, and yet they all turned and they expressed interest. And they looked at me, I talked to them, and they kind of acknowledged, and they went back to what they were doing. And I was thinking, wow, why can't people interact like this? We're the ones who are supposed to be at the top of the food chain intellectually. We are the ones who are supposed to be the most socially advanced. We have consciousness. Why are the horses doing it better than we are?
Well, I think there's so much that we can learn from our nature, how animals interact, how the whole world, in terms of collectively how it works, minus the humans, right? Because we put the human in there and everything goes wonky, right?
Right.
And you kind of look at the whole circle of how day turns to night and everything kind of works together, the spring and the fall and the summer and all of these seasons, they all work in harmony, right? As one comes, another leaves, and it all is harmonious. But when you put the humans in there, you get a real disarray of that harmony. So there's something missing. There's a link that we're not connecting, and be it power, be it greed, be it all of these things where, people are trying to get to wherever. The problem is we're leaving behind the idea of all is one. We are all one. And we're here to make this planet a better place for all. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that the way you framed that was beautiful with the horses, because we have so much to learn from those that are perhaps intellectually not as elevated as us, right? We are the highest creation, but yet we're behaving like the lowest form of creation at this point. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about carrying on this conversation, because I think it's one that's very important. So I really thank you for, we can talk forever, I think, but I think in terms of just allowing this platform to be there where people can watch and learn and perhaps even think about things when we talk about it, if it instigates somebody to just think a little bit differently, maybe do a little bit of research, I think we're going to make some headway. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. Thank you for all the wisdom that you share with me and my audience.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to spend my Friday with Nasira Jamal. As you know, I was so anxious to be here that I started yesterday.
I know, we should tell the audience what happened, right? Because you won't understand. So just so you all know, I got this message in the morning saying, "Are we on?" And I said yes. And then I get another message saying, "I don't have the link. Are you okay? Is everything okay?" So of course, Cheryl loves me and was very worried about me because I'm generally very much on time. And at some point in that conversation, I thought, wait a minute, this is tomorrow. Like, we're doing our thing tomorrow. I have you on my schedule. And finally, we realized that Cheryl thought it was Friday. So, so as anxious as we are to get on here to have our calls, I think, all our days are mixed up. Sometimes I don't even know what day it is. I will ask my son, what day is it today? Because I'm just working a different way. So, but I appreciate your concern and the fact that you wanted to get on the show early. I really do. Thank you so much. So anyways, I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay happy and healthy, and we'll continue this conversation next week. And I want to invite people to share their points of views, their questions, reach out to us. We're just here to make sure that we can do what we can do, because we all can make a difference.
Absolutely. We all have a part to play, and don't think that your part is too small, because for every little shift that we make, it's felt the world over. So do your part.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'll see you next Friday.
See you next Friday.
Yes, ciao. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I think the conversation needs to continue. And so we can be part of the solution or we can be part of the problem. Let's make a conscious decision on what side we want to be on, and then take the necessary steps, learn about things, ask questions, get involved. And really, at some point in time, there will be shifts that are larger. But right now, as Cheryl said, even the tiniest shift that we can make is felt all over the world. So wishing you a happy Friday. I'll see you guys on Monday. Be kind to yourself and to others. I love you all.